Guys, welcome back to Recharge. Hopefully we are on the downward of purely online, though we'll keep some stuff online for a little bit longer. There are some big changes that I'll announce here at the end of this video. But today, for Recharge, we're back in our story of Ruth, and today we're going to cover chapter 2. So last week we introed to chapter 1. We got to know who Ruth was, who Naomi was, and their relationship, and them coming back from one land back into the land of Israel, back to Bethlehem. So this week, in chapter 2, starting in verse 1, we get the introduction of this guy named Boaz. And all it says is that he's a relative of Elimelech, which was Naomi's husband. So we see a family connection there. And the reason why that's important is because in those times, if a man died, the closest male relative would marry the wife if there was no children. And then they would have another child in the name of the deceased. And so this is important and it's kind of giving us the introduction of Boaz saying, hey, he is a family member. He's a very close male family member. So he's a very important guy. So it begins with him saying, hey, here's Boaz, this great guy. Get to know him. And so it just gives that little mention and then goes on. And we see, okay, so Ruth and Naomi, they're in Israel. And now what? What's next? And honestly, what happens is Ruth starts doing what most young women did in that time. A lot of what widowed women did. They would go to farms. They would go out in the land. And they would follow the field workers who were collecting wheat and other things of that nature. They would call it gleaning. And she would walk up to these different lands and ask the owners and the people in charge if she could glean or take what is left behind from their fields. And so she would do that over and over again. And Boaz sees it and asks his servants, said, hey, who's this person? And they say that, well, the woman's name is Ruth, and she's the one that came back with her mother-in-law, Naomi, from her land. Then she's a Moabite woman, and she didn't have to come back, but she is coming back, and she's out here getting food to make sure that her mother-in-law doesn't starve to death. And so Boaz takes notice and gets a little bit more interested, and then continues to go on. And the next time he sees her, he calls her and says, hey, you know what? My servants have told me all about you, told me what the great thing you're doing for your mother-in-law. And I've told all the male servants not to bother you, not to bug you, not to harm you. And this is important because back then, these fields were huge and massive. And, you know, people would take advantage of the situation, especially with younger women. And so this was a really big deal. And so Boaz even goes on to say, don't even worry about going to a different field. Don't go to a different field. Stay in my field. Glean from my fields. Take what you can. In fact, I'll give you even a little bit extra. But don't worry about going anyone else's. No one's here to harm you. In fact, we'll take extra care of you. Just stay with the other young women who've already allowed and that I've provided safety for, and everything will be fine. And Boaz even tells her that he wants to bless her, and that he prays that the Lord would bless her tenfold, basically, for her gracious thing that she didn't have to do. She didn't have to leave her family. She didn't have to work so hard. And so her hard work is being recognized by other people, which is such a really cool thing and a huge blessing. And Boaz not only rewards her with safety, he actually invites her in and to have a meal later on with his servants. And as she's leaving, he says, hey, give her some extra food. Make sure to take it to her mother-in-law. And so it's really cool to see that not only does Boaz take notice, Ruth finds favor in his eyes, because Boaz is a rich guy. He owns tons of fields. He's very well renowned. People know who he is, and he's well liked in the community. And so Ruth gets blessed by this. And when she takes everything back, you just hear the joy in Naomi's voice when you read what her response is. And in fact, she says, man, just enjoy this favor. And man, what a blessing it is to know that you can go to that field and not worry about anything. You are protected. You are safe. So do what he says because of the safety and the provision that he has given you, and it is because of God that this has been given. And so this is such a really cool, huge blessing. And so there's really two big things that we can take away from this to make it very simple and clear for us, is that we are to work hard and work humbly. Ruth did not go out and say, look at me and all the great things I'm doing for my mother-in-law. Look how awesome I am. In fact, what we get is that she came and just said, hey, if I can be like everyone else and just glean from your fields, if that's okay. If I come in and work, I'll just keep to myself, do the things I need to do, and be out and not be a piece of trouble. And she worked hard. And she did the things that were unnecessary. And she was blessed because of that. And she never tried to make her name great out of that. She was very humble, as we'll see through the rest of the story. She didn't want to be known as this holier-than-thou person. She didn't want to be seen as this righteous person. She loved her mother-in-law. She loved her people. She loved what her mother-in-law stand for, her people, and she wanted to honor her mother-in-law. She wanted to make sure that she was taking care of her life. And she worked hard, not to be known, but to show love to somebody else. And so she worked super hard, but she worked humbly. And this should challenge us a lot, especially because, in our culture, through social media, but even just honestly, anything, we rank students, we rank everything because we want to be known and seen, and we want to be recognized. I've even seen a lot of people who go, look at this, and I know they're not doing it out of rudeness or spiteness, but they're going, hey, when you do something good and when you bless someone during this quarantine time, show a picture or do something. And not that that's wrong, but at some point there is this vanity, and you always have to question are they doing it? What are they doing that for? And I'm not saying everyone's bad about that and they're doing it for the wrong motives, but just think of all the good things that go unnoticed, right? And even Jesus says, don't let your left hand know what your right hand is doing, because pride can take over us very quickly. And with this work, again, she worked hard because it was the right thing to do, not for a grade, not for this, not for that. Now, granted, she did work hard because this was how they ate and survived, which is necessary. But she didn't want to be known. She's not the one who told people that, I'm doing this because I'm a Moabite woman who came back with my mother-in-law. People saw it, recognized it, and honored her for that. And the second big thing of this is that God provides. God provides food. God provides needs. God provides safety. And it's such a cool thing because it comes out of obedience. Not just, oh, hey, can you please do this, please do that. It's I'm trying to be obedient. I'm acting the correct way. I'm doing the things I'm called to do. And out of that, God blesses those who are obedient. Which is really hard because typically a lot of times, a lot of us feel, or at least I'll say I do sometime, my obedience will come from the provision rather than my provision comes from obedience. We try things like, God, if you will do this, I promise I'll do this. Rather, our response should be, God, because you have done this already, I will continue to do these things. God's not looking to, be a slot machine or a vending machine or like returning favors. It's I love you, and if you say you love me, you will do these things, and I will do these things. It's just the natural order of relationship. Just as you have with friends or for us who are married or even with parents, right? You try to love one another, hopefully, and you do things not for the return, but because you love them. And God shows that here where and Ruth shows that here where she didn't expect anything out of this. All she expected was, some people might tell me, yes, I need to watch my back. I'm going to work hard, keep my head down, and do the things that I need to do to make sure the person I love is fed and well taken care of. And I'm going to be obedient and loving to my mother-in-law. And she was blessed because of that. In so many ways, we can take this note and go, man, I do things out of obedience and honor and love, not out of recognition. Because honestly, again, it's hard for us to understand the weight of this. Because obviously most of us are not going to go to get married to someone from another country, them die, and then go live with our in-laws. Because a lot of time, if a spouse dies, the living spouse typically goes back home and begins their life the way it was. But the in-laws typically aren't dependent, especially now, dependent on the in-law that's still alive. And so the weight of this is hard for us to understand. But the only way I can't even say her name now. But the only way she was going to survive was through her daughter-in-law. And her daughter-in-law didn't owe it to her, right? Because Orpah, she ran back home. She listened and said, you know what? I can get remarried. My family's back here. I can go back and my life be safe. Where Ruth said, nope, I love you. You're my family. And I'll go where you go and I will die where you die. And I will make sure you're taken care of. And God honored her for that reason. And so take these things away. Learn from the book of Ruth. It's very short, quick read. So keep reading over the next couple weeks. And so what's coming up is on May 10th, we will restart services. Now, when I say restart service, I mean Sunday morning service, and that's all we're going to start with. And it'll be just a small portion of the church, so we'll work through that over the next couple days and give you more information of what that looks like. So don't get caught up too quick, right? We're going to take this slow because every day this changes. So over the next couple weeks, we'll continue to have more conversations with you, with your parents, with other people, and slowly start our return back into regular attendance at church. And so I don't want to say get back to normal because normal is a very relative term, and what we knew as in January as normal is not going to be normal in June no matter what. We'll experience a new normal when we return to what we would like to observe as normal life. But as we soon start being able to hopefully, right, we got to see how the next couple weeks go, but hopefully return into normal large gatherings where we get to gather together with everybody. We'll see how it comes. But May 10th, we will have a small in-person service while still having the service online. Sunday morning discipleship, Sunday night Bible study will still be online for the moment. And we'll work our way back into that as the state allows. But we love you guys. We're excited because things are beginning to change. So be in prayer for wisdom, for guidance. Do what you can do to help the situation. But we love you guys, and we will see you soon.